What's up guys, Kyle here again, and today we are checking out this little bastard, the EVH 5150 LBXII. Let's do it! Alright, hope you guys are doing great out there today. If this is your first time at my channel, I need to adjust this camera. If this is your first time here at my channel, my name is Kyle. What I do is I take awesome high gain amplifiers, overdrives, guitar cabs, speakers, pickups. I record them with a simple SM57 setup and I give you guys the unprocessed audio on your end. So if you're into E-standard thrash riffs, drop C hardcore riffs, and dudes who have serious mental issues regarding hoarding gear, you're in the right place. Consider hitting that like button on your way out and subscribing so you don't miss anything else. Thanks! Why is my voice so nasally? Alright guys, today we are checking out the EVH LBXII 5150. I'm pretty sure I said that backwards, but I don't really care. This is the second lunchbox size amp offering from EVH. Now it's been out for a couple of years, but my channel's not a couple of years old, so I have one in my possession. It's going out the door very soon, and I figured why not get a little demo of the amp on the channel before we let it leave. If you guys have been around my channel, you know how big of a 5150 6505 family amp fan that I am. These are no exception. These lunchbox amps are designed incredibly well. I think that they deliver all of the tone in a tiny form factor. My only issue with these amps, as it is with most of the lunchbox size amps, is the EL84 power tubes have virtually no headroom. They just start to break up way too early. You can't use these in a band context unless you are miking your rig and listening to yourselves through in-ears or listening to yourselves over a PA system. It's just not gonna be able to push that type of power if you have a drummer that is really worth his weight at all, because good hard rock and metal drummers hit the drums hard. If they don't, your band sounds weak and you're a weak person in life. Not really, but you know, if you're playing heavy aggressive music, you should be hitting the drums aggressively. And if you are doing that, this amp is just not gonna be able to keep up. It'll get loud, but it'll start to fart out, it'll fall apart at higher frequencies. It just, when you get those tubes compressed, they don't sound very nice. They start to sound really abrasive on the ears and the low end starts to fall apart. But what the hell's going on? If you're in a bedroom situation, if you're in a recording only situation, or if you're in a band that has a legit PA and plays gigs through a legit PA, or you guys have an in-ear monitor, whatever, this thing is going to sound fantastic all day long. A lot of people ask me, am I gonna get an upgrade in tone by going to a 50 watt or 100 watt models? I personally think that these little amps sound great until you really start to push them too hard. So if you're going for lower volume tones, these are gonna sound really, really good. And I don't think you're gonna find an upgrade in overall tone just by moving to a higher wattage power section per se. It all depends on your use case, the scenario that you're using it in. But anyways, I'm going off on a rant yet again, as I like to do. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and show you both channels of this amp. That intro clip that you guys heard, I busted out my Gibson Les Paul Studio Faded here with the Duncan Alpha Omega pickups in it. It's been a long time overdue that I played this guitar. My boost board is off to the side here because it does not fit on top of this tiny amp. I had the Deadwell Duality on with the Tube Screamer channel engaged. For now, we just have the Rev G8 noise gate, no other effects affecting the tone of this amp. We're gonna go over to the green channel. Not gonna spend a lot of time there because it's generally a clean or crunch type of tone, and that's probably not what you're here at my channel for. We're gonna put everything back to noon. The resonance was set at 1 o'clock for the intro clip. We're gonna put it back to noon as well. And here's what we got. All right, we got some twangy, kind of crunchy rock tones going on here. Let's go ahead and push that gain a little bit more. Got a very kind of aggressive, crunchy rock and roll style tone there with the gain dialed that high. Let's go ahead and push it even more. I'm actually gonna dial the highs back just a bit. get a little bit more low and a little bit more mid. Sounds really good for that crunchy classic rock type thing. It's a little bit more nasally in the midsection than I would describe like a Marshall style amp being for the classic rock thing, but it definitely like it holds its own in that regard. Could definitely pull off some Van Halen tones, maybe with a boost or an EQ out front. Let's go ahead and kick on a boost and just see how it reacts to like a Tube Screamer style overdrive. Overall, that sounds pretty good to me, honestly. Really cool, but not really what we're here for. That channel is more meant to do the clean to the kind of pushed breakup style distortion that you would hear on more classic rock albums. So we're gonna go over to the blue channel because that is where the chugs reside. All right, let's put everything back to noon. We're gonna dial the gain down to 9 o'clock. I'm going to put everything at noon here as well, including the presence. Let's start there. The resonance on the back is still at noon, and let's start dialing in some tones. Alrighty, just like that, we have quite a bit more saturation on tap. Let's go ahead and bump that gain up. All right, so we're starting to get some more saturation pretty quickly there. I mean, we're already in a high gain territory for sure. Let's add a little bit more high and a little bit more mid to this tone. All right, so overall, that sounds pretty good. A little quacky on the high end. Let's pull that high back, maybe add a little bit more presence. Keep the mids up. I'm gonna add a little bit more lows. Not bad at all. It sounds surprisingly kind of thick in the lows and the low mids compared to say like the 6L6 5153. I'm trying not to burp in the middle of talking, sorry. But overall, I feel like it's lacking maybe a little bit of aggression. Let's go ahead and add some presence and see if we can kind of brighten the top end up a little bit without making it sound too thin. Okay, so overall, it's not bad without a boost. Of course, the blue channel on the 5150s, I always feel benefits from a boost to kind of tighten things up and make them a little bit more punchy for my personal style. I'm going to go ahead and dial that gain back a little bit. We're gonna kick that Tube Screamer style overdrive again, the Deadwell duality, and let's see how it sounds with a boost engaged. All right, so one thing that I have noticed about the LBX2 over, say, like the original version, which is actually probably my favorite lunchbox style amp with the EL84 power tubes, it just seems like it's a little bit more congested in the mids. It's not as aggressive. It's more of like an in-between of the blue channel and the red channel. It seems like it's got more compression going on. It's definitely got more gain going on because I have the gain dialed pretty low even with a boost for this style of amp. And usually on the blue channel on most of the other EVH offerings, you have to have that gain at noon or a little bit higher even with the boost out to kind of get it into more of a saturated realm. Here we have it dialed low, and it's got some of the similarities of the red channel where it's kind of just compressed on the top end. It's lacking a little bit of that upper mid-range aggression that you get from the 5150 blue channels. Overall, I just feel like it's a little darker, it's a little fuller. This amp would be more for the person who likes the 5150 thing but wants something that's a little bit thicker, more a la the rectifier style voicing. It doesn't sound like a rectifier, but it's more low mid bass and it's more thick overall than the original Lunchbox amp is. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna try to dial up some more mids. I'm gonna pull that presence back and I'm gonna dial up a tad more high. And now that we have the boost on, we can kind of push that resonance up to get more low end chunk out of it. So we're gonna push the lows, push the resonance up. Falling out of tune there. All right, so adding that much lows from both the resonance and the low end dial on the front kind of made it a little bit too boomy for my taste. I like the low end to be kind of tight and punchy for most of the stuff that I do, but for the average player, that's probably going to be about where they're gonna wanna have things set, because that really kind of brings the low end out front on this amp. Even for a little Lunchbox style amp, these things have a ton of low end push, just as long as you're not pushing the power amp too hard. Let's go ahead and try a TS9 real quick and see how the amp reacts to a standard TS9 style circuit. So the TS9 actually I feel suits this amp a little better because it does add slightly more brighter upper mids and kind of does give it some of that aggression that I feel like it's lacking on its own. So that's a good boost for it. Let's see what happens when we kind of scoop those mids out. All right, so that mid control actually does quite a bit to the overall voicing of the amp. Typically the EVH amps, or the 5150 amps, I'm sorry, in general, the EQ controls don't do a ton. They don't have as much sweep as a lot of other amps out there that really allow you to shape the tone a lot more with the EQ controls, but that made a really massive difference scooping it out like that. I definitely like it with the mids pushed forward more. It definitely is going to cut through a mix better that way, and it just kind of sounds overall more aggressive, less subdued. But I like my mids, so that's my personal preference. All right, guys, I have my EC 1001T with the EMG 5766 pickup set in it. I have touched nothing on the amp. Let's see how different it sounds with the EMGs. All right, so definitely a lot more compressed, a lot less high end. We're gonna pull the high end up. It definitely had a lot more output too. Let's pull the gain down. Let's add some low end because it was kind of missing some punch that the passives had. I don't mind that at all. It's still maybe a little bit more subdued or compressed in the high end for my taste than I would like, but overall it definitely doesn't sound bad. All right, guys, last but not least, we still have the Tube Screamer engaged, but I'm gonna go ahead and drop down to drop C and see how this thing does for some more hardcore style riffs and a lower tuning. In my opinion, that sounds really kind of muffled and gross. I don't like it. I'm gonna turn the mids up and turn the highs up a tad. We're gonna turn the presence back just a little bit, and overall leave everything else the same. To me, it needs a little more low-end punch. Let's get that resonance turned up to about 7 on the dial. Not a huge difference, but just enough for me to be a little bit more happy with it. So let's go ahead and play something. I'm gonna grab a different guitar real quick because I definitely feel like this just sounds way more muddy and subdued than it should sound. Let's grab something with a little bit of a brighter pickup in it and try that. That is much better. Now, obviously, I adjusted some controls, but overall, this guitar is much less, or these pickups are much less compressed in this Gallagher here, and just sounds way better suited to the voicing of this amp. The amp definitely seems to just be really subdued in the upper mid frequencies. It's just really smooth in the mids and overall not very aggressive sounding, and I think that that's kind of like my beef with it. But overall, I like the tone. It would definitely be like a blender amp for me instead of being like a main amp. It wouldn't be my main tone in most cases unless I found a guitar and cab that really suited it and brought those upper mid aggressive tones out of it that I would require. But in most cases, I'm just gonna pick the LBXII if I'm gonna go for something like that anyways, because it's more suited to my taste. But if you guys like the thicker, darker, smoother tones, you're more of a rectifier guy than a 5150 guy, the voicing of this amp might be a little bit more up your alley than, say, a lot of the other 5150s. So really cool amp. I don't think it sounds bad by any means. It's definitely got a nice, thick voicing to it. Just not my personal preference, but let's go ahead and play one more riff and we'll call it a day. Alright guys, that's gonna do it for me today on the 5150 LBX2. Shut up! What did you guys think on your end about this amp? Is this an amp that you own? Is it an amp that you've wanted to own but never knew how it sounded? What did you think about the tones that I got here in this video? Did they suck? Was it my fault? Or do you just think that the amp doesn't sound all that great? Or did you absolutely love it? Whatever it is that you thought, leave it down in the comments and I'll meet you guys down there to talk about it. Appreciate you watching the videos as always, and I hope that you find them helpful. Down in the description of this video are all my support links, including my Sweetwater affiliate link. You click that link, get yourself something nice from the fine folks at Sweetwater, and I get a little kickback. It helps me fund new toys for the channel, and I greatly appreciate it. Also consider becoming a member of the Belligerent Amateur community by joining my Discord server and Facebook group, also linked down below in the description. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Kyle here again. We'll see you next time.